Good morning, St. Andrews.
Good morning.
It is so good to be here with you. It's wonderful to explore these ideas and imaginations of collaboration. It's wonderful to share and work together, and it's a delight to be with you all here this morning. One fun thing about being a preacher in a new space is I'm never quite sure where to stand. Anybody else have that feeling, like I'm wandering around in outer space? But we'll be fine. We'll figure it out together. So my name's Mark. I serve St. Luke's Lutheran Church just up the road here, and I've been in the synod for quite a while. I started over at Mount Si Lutheran Church in North Bend, where my family and I still have a home. About 8 years ago now, I took the call to St. Luke's up in Bellevue and have been serving there ever since, except I took a little side adventure. For 18 months, St. Luke's loaned me to Holden Village, and so I was up there serving as village pastor. My family and I have been back now, so I can wander over this way too. We've been back now for about 6 or 7 months, getting reacquainted and reconnected with the community over at St. Luke's. So I've been around and in this synod and in this cluster, and I've seen several familiar faces and several new faces. And it's just a delight to now start finally working in collaboration, knitting in these relationships together. As Tom said, Pastor Dave Thomas from Cross of Christ is at St. Luke's this morning, and I left my cell phone in my car. And so I hope Pastor Dave is at St. Luke's this morning. I trust everything is going well, but I have no idea. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Southeast Alaska, where I was formed in this way of kind of wilderness and wild places, and this sense of adventure that was steeped deeply into my bones. And I kind of bring that sense of adventure to everything that I do, whether it's academic, whether it's outdoors, whether it's church. I love to be out pushing at the edges and thinking courageously and adventurously. And that's one of the things that is so exciting to me about this idea of collaboration. It's an adventure, and we're on it together. We get to do this good work of proclaiming the good news that Jesus has risen from the dead, that we are free from death. We get to do this work together, and in this way of collaboration, it's all the more exciting, all the more adventurous, all the more abundant. We get to see each other in this work, rather than just living as individuals or silos into ourselves, but look around and see the gifts and see the joy in the community. So then after I was raised in Southeast Alaska, I went to Pacific Lutheran University, a fine academic institution, where I studied physics. I never had any intention of being, I've got a physicist in the house here, that's great, yeah. Or maybe a lute, physics and lute, both. Whoa. All right, we should chat. I had never had any intention of being a pastor. I probably couldn't even tell you what a pastor did outside of a Sunday morning when I was in college. So I studied physics. I was planning to go off and be a physicist, but then my senior year of college, it just didn't quite excite me. I thought, am I going to spend the rest of my career doing this? And it wasn't quite animating me. So I kind of took a year off. I didn't kind of take a year off. I did. I took a year off and wondered what I was going to do with my life. So I went back to Alaska. I was a snowboard instructor. I worked in the school district, just goofed around, and thought deeply about what am I actually called to do? And long story short, wandering around for that year, I was sitting with a pastor who was from Ketchikan, who I'd known since I was very little. And I was kind of telling him about my exploration of physics and what I was thinking about doing, and he looked at me and he said, when are you going to go to seminary? Stan, haven't you been listening? I'm doing, I'm exploring geophysics or maybe, and he said, okay. And I thought, well, what would it be like to go to seminary? And so I did some late night internet searches when nobody was looking. Explored a little bit. The more I learned about what the life of ministry would be, the more I was kind of excited by that. This idea of being with people, sharing in this work and empowering and equipping congregations and individuals. So there I was, wondering about this career in physics, now all of a sudden entertaining a journey to seminary. So I went from living in Southeast Alaska studying physics, I went to seminary in Iowa. I went from living in rural Southeast Alaska studying physics to studying theology in Iowa. And I don't know which was the greater leap, honestly. I'd never seen anything like Iowa before. I don't know if you know or not, but cows are huge animals. There's pigs and sheep everywhere. What is this strange land? And I thought, well, I'll just try it out. I'll go for a year and see if it's for me. And every step along the way was more and more affirming and confirming that this was my call and that this is what I indeed wanted to do with my life. So I was at seminary. My wife and I were married our senior year. We met at PLU. We were both physics majors at PLU. And then we waited till my senior year of seminary. We dated for a long time to get married. And then my first call was out in Shelton, Washington, where I served for 2 years down on the Olympic Peninsula and had a delightful time out in Shelton as an associate pastor. And when I was an associate pastor, you kind of have this idea of, oh, wouldn't it be fun to be the senior pastor? You're kind of wanting to get out on your own. And now I kind of look back and think, that was a pretty good gig. Maybe I'll look for an associate gig somewhere. So I was in Shelton for 2 years. Then my wife decided to go back to school, so we moved up to North Bend. I took the call at Mount Si so she could commute to the University of Washington for school. And we've made our home in North Bend ever since. Of course, I served Mount Si Lutheran for 7 years, and now I've been at St. Luke's for about 8. And what a joy to be on this journey, in this adventure, in this community, in this way, and in this place. And I absolutely love the season of Easter. Of course, we have the day of the resurrection that we all celebrate, but then we are ushered into this Easter season where we continue to work out, where we continue to reconnect to the story of the resurrection, this gift of new life. We continue to work out that kind of classic Lutheran question. What does this mean? What do we do with the story of the resurrection? What does this mean for us in Bellevue, on the east side, here and now? What is this gift of new life? And for me, the answer to that question hinges on that moment where the night before he was betrayed, Jesus gathered his disciples. They shared a meal. Even the one who would betray him had a place at the table. And he took off his robe, tied a towel around his waist, and he knelt down and he washed their feet. And he said, now, after all of this, after they've eaten together, he's washed their feet, all of this is unfolded, he says, now I give you a new commandment. And you guys know the new commandment, right? This isn't news. This is a new commandment Jesus is giving his disciples, his followers, that you love one another as I have loved you. Well, how has Jesus loved us? He's fed them at the table. He's washed their feet. This radical, boundary-crossing, abundant love, that's the love I want you to share. And, he says, it's by the sharing of that great love, that radical, boundary-crossing, foot-washing kind of love, that the world will know you're my disciples. How profound is that? It's by sharing that love, working together in this way, the world around you will know that you're my disciples. And then the church comes along, and we make it about all sorts of other things. What we're for, what we're against, all of these things. Jesus says, it's by this love that you will share, that people will know that you're my disciples, that you're on this adventure with me. And he invites them into this radical way of love, this radical relationship. And then Jesus goes to the cross to make it possible. I don't think without the death and resurrection of Jesus, we could fully live into this new commandment, that we love one another as Jesus has loved us. So then it's kind of funny to read St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians. These newly forming Christian communities are kind of being built up in Rome and Corinth and around the whole region. People are starting to center community around the good news of Jesus. And a letter is just a half of the conversation, right? We don't know, but we know that Chloe's people have kind of let Paul in on there's some conflict in the church. And so Paul's letter to the Corinthians, I think, is kind of hilarious. It's basically, guys, knock it off. What are you doing? You're letting division live among you. You're letting these things divide you. It's like they've forgotten this new commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. It's that simple. It's that hard. You're letting division pull you apart, and rather we should be rooted and knit together in this gift of love. That Jesus went to the cross, died and rose again to bring us new life so that we might live into these relationships rooted in love. That radical, boundary-crossing, foot-washing kind of love. And it wasn't that many years after the resurrection into the birth of these Christian communities that division takes root, takes over. And St. Paul's writing these letters. Guys, knock it off. Even so much to the point of, I'm so glad I didn't baptize any of you. Knock it off. So now, 2,000 years later, here we are. How's it going? We still let the color of the carpet, although you got a lovely wood floor here. We still let all of these divisions creep into our hearts and we hold them against each other, right? It's not just the church, it's people. We're really good at being divided. We're really good at holding conflict. The church has, I think, perfected the art, though. We're especially good at conflict. That's not where the coffee pot goes. That's not the right color of the paraments. We let these conflicts grow in our heart and we forget that great commandment that Jesus gave the disciples, love one another as I have loved you. Let that be your unity. Let that be your witness to the world around you. Let's be in this together, rooted in love. So I think these words that St. Paul gives to the letter to the church in Corinth, I think the reading from Acts, they inspire our imagination for how we might deal with conflict. It also tells us that conflict isn't necessarily a failure. There will be conflict. There will be divisions. We will disagree on things. If that's news for somebody, I'm really sorry. We're not always going to agree. But let our unity be the love of Jesus that connects us, that knits us together. That commandment that we remember that we are living more fully into each and every day. Love one another as I have loved you. Let that be our guide to overcoming divisions. We remember that we are knit in this great love that doesn't demand that we are now in uniformity. We don't all have to be the same, but we are united. We are in unity. So we can hold conflict, we can hold divisions, all of those things will happen. But above all, let us be rooted in this gift of love that God has given us in Jesus. This gift of new life that is not of our own doing, our own making, but is an invitation, is a gift. I think as we imagine collaboration, as we explore putting our congregations together in relationship, think about the witness of love that will have to the community around us. My dream is that as we forge these relationships more robustly, the world around us will say, look at those guys. Something interesting is happening there as they're working together, as they're collaborating, as they're witnessing this love. My dream is that people would see that love that we share among ourselves and among our congregations and think, maybe I do belong there. Maybe there is a place for me there because of this tremendous witness of love that we share with the world around us. So it's an honor to be here with you today. It's an honor to share my story and to share this good news. Remember that you are loved, radically and deeply loved. And you are sent to go be a messenger and a witness to that great love. Amen.